Hey, welcome back, everyone. If you're joining us for the first time, I'm really glad you found this channel, because what we talk about here is the kind of medicine that most doctors don't have time to cover in a 15-minute clinic visit. And today's topic, I'm going to be completely honest with you, is probably the single most underestimated pillar of human health I have ever come across in my entire career. We're talking about sleep. Now, before you think, oh, I know this already, and click away, please stay with me. Because what I'm going to share today is not your standard go to bed earlier and put your phone down advice. We're going to go deep. We're going to talk about what's actually happening inside your brain and your body while you sleep. And some of this, I promise, is going to genuinely surprise you. I want to be upfront. I'll be drawing on insights from functional medicine, specifically from practitioners like Dr. Mark Hyman, who has spent decades looking at sleep not as a lifestyle preference, but as a foundational biological system. And when you hear what that system actually does, you're going to look at your sleep habits very, very differently. So grab your tea, get comfortable, and let's do this. Okay, so let me start with something I think most of us have personally felt. This idea that being tired is somehow noble. That grinding through the day on 5 hours of sleep while crushing 5 espressos is a sign of dedication, of productivity, of ambition. I get it. I have been there. I spent years working in fast-paced clinical environments where pulling a long shift was just the baseline expectation. And the culture around that, this badge of honor around exhaustion, it is deeply embedded in how we think about hard work and success. But here's the thing, that logic is biologically backwards. When I say backwards, I mean it literally. Everything you're trying to achieve, sharper thinking, better performance, a healthier body, more emotional resilience, all of it depends on sleep. Not in a fuzzy, feel-good kind of way, I mean in a cold, hard, mechanistic way. Sleep is when your body performs its most critical maintenance. Your hormones get calibrated, your immune system gets recharged, and as we're going to talk about in a few minutes, your brain literally gets cleaned. So the first shift I want you to make, before we even get into the specifics, is this. Stop thinking of sleep as rest. Stop thinking of it as the absence of productivity. Start thinking of it as the most sophisticated biological program your body runs. It's not passive, it is intensely active, and when you cut it short, you are not just tired, you are undermining the very foundation of your health. Okay, with that frame in mind, let's get into the 5 insights that I think will completely change the way you approach your nights. All right. Insight number 1, and this one is genuinely one of the most exciting discoveries in all of modern neuroscience. I'm talking about something called the glymphatic system. Now, you've heard of the lymphatic system, right? That's your body's waste clearance network. It collects metabolic debris from your tissues and flushes it out. The glymphatic system is essentially the brain's version of that. But here's what makes it extraordinary. It only turns on properly when you're asleep. Let me paint you a picture of what's actually happening in your brain right now, or rather, what's happening when you're in deep sleep tonight. While you're sleeping, your brain cells, and I mean this literally, they shrink, they get smaller, and that shrinkage creates gaps between the cells. Into those gaps, cerebrospinal fluid rushes in, and that fluid acts like a wash. It circulates through the brain tissue, picks up metabolic waste products, and flushes them out. This is why Dr. Hyman uses the phrase brain car wash, and honestly, I think it's the most accurate metaphor I've heard. Your brain has a nightly car wash, and if you don't sleep, the car wash doesn't run. Now, why does that matter? Because the primary waste products being cleared by this system include amyloid beta and tau proteins. And if those names ring a bell, it's because they are the 2 proteins most strongly linked to Alzheimer's disease and dementia. When these proteins accumulate in the brain, because the glymphatic system isn't clearing them efficiently, they form toxic aggregates. They trigger neuroinflammation, and over time, they degrade cognitive function. This is not a theory. This is well-established neuroscience. And I want to be clear about the clinical implications here, because they are serious. When you chronically undersleep, when you're consistently getting 6 hours or less, you are allowing these waste products to build up night after night after night. You're not just feeling foggy in the morning. You are, over years and decades, increasing your risk for neurodegenerative disease. And on top of that, sleep also activates your brain's immune cells, called microglia, which act as the brain's defense system. They identify and neutralize threats. They manage inflammation, and they need sleep to do their jobs properly. So when someone asks me, what's the single best thing I can do for my long-term brain health? My answer is always the same: sleep. Good, consistent, quality sleep. Not because it's the easiest thing, it's often not, but because nothing else even comes close in terms of impact. One practical takeaway from this: deep sleep, particularly slow-wave sleep, that's the deep non-REM sleep you get in the earlier part of the night, is when the glymphatic system is most active. And deep sleep is extremely sensitive to alcohol, late-night screens, stress, and irregular timing. All things we'll come back to. Okay, let's move to insight number 2. And this one is going to hit close to home for a lot of people, because it's about the weekend. How many of you are operating on, say, 6 hours of sleep Monday through Friday, telling yourself it's fine because you'll sleep in on Saturday and Sunday? I used to do this myself, and I have to tell you, the research on this is genuinely alarming. Your body runs on what's called a circadian rhythm. This is a roughly 24-hour biological clock that regulates not just when you feel tired, but your hormone levels, your body temperature, your digestion, your metabolism. Essentially, every system in your body is timed according to this internal clock. And that clock demands consistency. It is not a flexible system. It does not appreciate you going to bed at midnight on weekdays and at 2 a.m. on weekends. Researchers have a term for this mismatch. They call it social jet lag. And the metabolic consequences are extraordinary. In a landmark study, researchers put healthy participants, people with no pre-existing metabolic conditions, through just 3 weeks of a simulated irregular sleep schedule. They shifted their sleep timing by 1 hour per day and slightly restricted their total sleep. That's it, a relatively minor disruption. The results? These healthy people were pushed into a pre-diabetic metabolic state. Their fasting blood glucose was elevated. Their insulin response was impaired. And here's the number that really gets me: their resting metabolic rate. That's the number of calories your body burns just by existing, just to keep your heart beating and your lungs breathing, dropped by 8%. Think about that. An 8% drop in resting metabolic rate from 3 weeks of slightly irregular sleep. No change in diet, no change in exercise, just disrupted sleep timing. And that translated to their bodies burning meaningfully fewer calories around the clock. And this is what I call the silent crisis of sleep disruption. Because you don't necessarily feel it acutely. You're not doubled over in pain. You might think you're getting enough hours, but your metabolism is slowly downregulating. Your insulin sensitivity is declining, and your risk for type 2 diabetes, weight gain, and cardiovascular disease is quietly creeping upward. The practical message here is simple, even if it's not always easy. Your sleep schedule needs to be consistent, and I mean 7 days a week. Your body doesn't understand that Saturday is the weekend. Try to go to bed and wake up within the same 1-hour window every single day, including weekends. That consistency is not optional for metabolic health. Okay, insight number 3, and this one I find myself explaining to patients all the time, because it's one of those things that's both completely obvious once you understand it, and also incredibly liberating. Have you ever had a terrible night's sleep and then found yourself absolutely ravenous the next day, craving chips, cookies, anything sweet or starchy, and feeling like no matter what you eat, you just can't feel satisfied? I want you to understand something. That is not a character flaw. That is not a failure of willpower. That is a hormonal hijacking. Your body is doing exactly what it's biologically programmed to do. And fighting it with willpower alone is fighting your own physiology. You're not going to win that one. Here's what's happening on a mechanistic level. When you're sleep deprived, two key hunger-regulating hormones go haywire. The first is leptin, Leptin. Leptin is your satiety hormone. When leptin is at normal levels, it sends signals to your brain that say, hey, we've had enough to eat, we're good. When you don't sleep enough, leptin levels drop. Your I'm full signal gets suppressed. At the exact same time, levels of ghrelin, Ghrelin, go up. Ghrelin is your hunger hormone. It's the signal that says, we need food, we need it now. So you've got your satiety signal turned down and your hunger signal turned up simultaneously. That's a double hit. And it gets worse. Your sleep-deprived brain is in a state of perceived energy crisis. It knows it's running low. And evolutionarily, the fastest source of energy is glucose, sugar, and starch. So your brain starts driving you with remarkable intensity toward exactly those foods. Dr. Hyman has described this so well from his own experience, working overnight shifts in the ER, delivering babies, doing those long clinical nights, and then finding himself craving sugar with a kind of urgency that felt almost addictive. Because it is. It's operating on the same neurological reward pathways. So here's the clinical bottom line. If you are trying to lose weight, if you are trying to eat healthier, if you have blood sugar issues, and you are not addressing your sleep, you are fighting an uphill battle. You can have the perfect diet plan, the most disciplined meal prep, the best intentions in the world. But if your leptin and ghrelin are dysregulated from poor sleep, those hormonal forces will undermine your efforts every single time. Sleep is metabolic medicine. Period. All right, we're into insight number 4 now. And this is where we get into the practical stuff, the specifics of your bedroom, your environment, and why they matter far more than most people realize. Most people think sleep hygiene is about putting your phone down, and yes, that's part of it. But it goes so much deeper. And the reason it goes deeper is that your body has light-sensitive receptors, not just in your eyes, but in your skin and in your cells, that are actively reading the environment, even while you sleep. Your mitochondria, the energy-producing organelles inside every cell, are sensitive to light. Your skin contains light-sensitive receptors, and any exposure to artificial light during the night can suppress melatonin and disrupt your brainwave architecture. So let's talk about what a genuinely optimized sleep environment looks like. Temperature. Your body needs to drop its core temperature to initiate deep sleep. This is a hardwired, biological mechanism. The commonly recommended bedroom temperature is around 68 degrees Fahrenheit, or about 20 degrees Celsius. But Dr. Hyman personally finds that 63 to 64 degrees, slightly cooler, is his optimal range for deep restorative sleep. The point is, err on the side of cooler. A warm room is one of the most common and easily fixable causes of poor sleep quality. Darkness, and I mean real darkness. I want you to do an experiment tonight. Turn off every light in your bedroom and sit there for a minute. Let your eyes adjust. I bet there's more light in that room than you thought. The little LED on your TV, the charging indicator on your laptop, the glow from your phone charger, maybe light creeping under the door. Each one of those is a signal to your brain. There's a reason some sleep specialists call these vampire lights, small but persistent, quietly disrupting your biology. The solution is ruthless. Cover every single LED with black electrical tape. Use blackout curtains or blackout shades, or if you'd rather not redecorate, a high-quality sleep mask that completely blocks light is a fantastic investment. Literally one of the highest return on investment purchases you can make for your health. Nasal breathing. This one surprises people. During sleep, many of us default to mouth breathing, especially if we're congested or stressed. But mouth breathing during sleep is actually problematic. It can lead to oxygen desaturation, increased cortisol activation, and a kind of low-grade stress response that prevents you from reaching deep restorative sleep stages. Nasal breathing, by contrast, activates your parasympathetic nervous system, what we call the rest and digest mode. A simple, somewhat unusual intervention that some people swear by is mouth taping, using a small piece of surgical tape over the lips to gently encourage nasal breathing during sleep. I know that sounds strange, and I want to be clear. If you have any respiratory conditions, any congestion, any concerns about this, please talk to your doctor first. But for healthy individuals, some sleep researchers do find this helpful. EMFs, electromagnetic frequencies. Okay, I'll be honest, the science on this is less definitive than some other areas we've discussed. But there is a growing body of evidence suggesting that electromagnetic fields from Wi-Fi routers, phones, and other devices can interfere with sleep quality in sensitive individuals. The practical, low-cost, no-downside interventions here are: turn off your Wi-Fi router at night, keep your phone in another room or at minimum on airplane mode, and keep electronics away from your bed. If you want to go further, there are products called Faraday cages, essentially conductive fabric canopies that block electromagnetic signals that some highly sensitive individuals use over their beds. Whether or not EMFs are definitively disrupting your sleep, none of these interventions hurt anything. And the habit of keeping your phone out of the bedroom alone is transformative for most people. All right, the fifth and final insight, and this one connects a lot of dots in a way I find clinically really important. Your body's primary detoxification pathways are most active while you sleep. Your liver is doing its heaviest detox work in the middle of the night. Your immune system is actively neutralizing environmental toxins, processing metabolic byproducts, clearing out old or damaged cells through a process called autophagy. Sleep is not just maintenance, it is active, systematic detoxification. But here's the catch, and this is where it becomes a two-way relationship. If your toxic load during the day is too high, it actually sabotages your ability to sleep well at night. And then poor sleep impairs detoxification. And impaired detoxification makes sleep worse, and you end up in a vicious cycle. So what do I mean by toxic load? I mean the cumulative burden of environmental chemicals, endocrine disruptors, heavy metals, and other compounds your body is dealing with. There's a practical starting point here that I recommend to almost all of my patients who are struggling with sleep. Check your personal care products. The average person applies a surprising number of products to their skin every day. Shampoo, conditioner, moisturizer, deodorant, perfume. And many of these products contain chemicals like parabens, phthalates, and synthetic fragrances that are endocrine disruptors. They interfere with your hormone signaling, and disrupted hormone signaling, particularly cortisol and melatonin, directly undermine sleep quality. The Environmental Working Group has a free resource called the Skin Deep Database. You can find it at ewg.org, where you can look up the safety rating of almost any personal care product. I encourage you to spend 20 minutes with that tool. You might be surprised at what's in your bathroom cabinet. Beyond personal care products, think about your food storage. Plastics leach hormone-disrupting chemicals, particularly when they're heated. Switching to glass or stainless steel containers for food storage is a simple, durable change that reduces your endocrine disruptor exposure meaningfully. And on the nutrition side, cruciferous vegetables, broccoli, kale, cauliflower, Brussels sprouts, cabbage, contain compounds called glucosinolates that upregulate your body's production of glutathione. Glutathione is your master antioxidant and one of the primary molecules your liver uses for detoxification. Eating these vegetables regularly is one of the simplest ways to support your body's natural ability to detoxify itself.
Don't forget to hit that subscribe button and join the journey.
Before we wrap up, I want to run through a few targeted supplements and interventions that have solid evidence behind them for improving sleep quality. I want to be clear, these are not magic bullets. The foundational stuff, the environment, the schedule, the nutrition is already in place. But for many people, they can be meaningful. Magnesium glycinate. This is probably my single most commonly recommended sleep supplement. Magnesium is involved in over 300 enzymatic reactions in the body, and it plays a critical role in nervous system regulation and muscle relaxation. The majority of adults are deficient. Magnesium glycinate is well absorbed and gentle on the stomach. A dose of 200 to 400 milligrams before bed, or up to 600 milligrams for some individuals, can make a meaningful difference in sleep onset and sleep quality. The Epsom salt bath. Epsom salts are magnesium sulfate. Soaking in an Epsom salt bath with a few drops of lavender oil, which has its own evidence for cortisol reduction, allows magnesium to absorb transdermally through the skin. It lowers cortisol, relaxes muscles, and genuinely helps the nervous system shift into a more parasympathetic, rest-oriented state. I call it the ultra bath. It's old-fashioned, simple, and it works. GABA and L-theanine. GABA is your brain's primary inhibitory neurotransmitter. It's essentially your brain's natural calming signal. L-theanine is an amino acid found in green tea that promotes alpha wave activity in the brain, a relaxed, calm alertness. Together, in a dose sometimes called 200 milligrams of Zen, they can help quiet that tired but wired state many people experience, where your body is exhausted, but your mind won't stop running. 5-HTP and B-complex vitamins. 5-HTP is a precursor to serotonin, and serotonin is the precursor to melatonin. B vitamins, particularly B6, are required cofactors in this conversion pathway. So if you're deficient in B vitamins, you may not be producing optimal amounts of melatonin, even if you're getting good sleep. Addressing those nutrient gaps can be genuinely transformative. A word on melatonin. Many people reach for melatonin as a first-line sleep aid, and it has its place, particularly for short-term yivs, for jet lag, for resetting a disrupted schedule. Doses in the range of 0.3 to 3 milligrams are generally appropriate for adults, but I want to flag something important. Melatonin is a hormone. It is not a benign supplement the way vitamin C is. Its use in children has increased dramatically in recent years, by some estimates, over 50%. And this concerns me because melatonin is involved in the timing of puberty and sexual development. Giving children exogenous melatonin regularly without medical supervision is something I'd urge real caution around. Okay, so let me land this plane and bring all 5 insights together. We've talked about the glymphatic system, the brain's nightly car wash, and why disrupted sleep accelerates the accumulation of the very proteins linked to Alzheimer's disease. We've talked about circadian consistency, why sleeping irregular hours, even if you think you're getting enough, is enough to push your metabolism into a pre-diabetic state. We've talked about the hormonal hijacking of sleep deprivation, why your cravings for sugar and junk food after a bad night are not willpower failures, but predictable biological consequences. We've talked about your sleep environment, temperature, darkness, breathing, electromagnetic exposure, and why your bedroom is not just a room, it is a biological signal. And we've talked about the detox-sleep connection and the simple steps you can take to reduce your toxic load and support your body's extraordinary capacity to heal itself overnight. I want to leave you with one question, and I want you to actually sit with it. If you genuinely knew, not intellectually, but in your bones, that one extra hour of high-quality sleep was the most powerful metabolic medicine available to you, the most effective cognitive enhancer, the cheapest and most accessible longevity intervention on the planet. What would you change about your evening routine tonight? Not in a month, not after you finish the current project. Tonight. Because the beauty of sleep is that you don't have to overhaul your entire life to start improving it. You don't need a prescription. You don't need expensive testing. Start somewhere small. Dim your lights at 8 p.m. Drop your thermostat a few degrees. Cover the LED on your router. Take your magnesium. Put your phone in the other room. Progress, not perfection. That's the whole game. Thank you so much for spending your time here today. If this was useful, if it shifted something for you, please share it with a friend who's exhausted, a family member who thinks they're fine on 6 hours, a colleague who brags about never sleeping. They need to hear this. And if you want to go deeper on any of these topics, the glymphatic system, circadian biology, functional medicine approaches to metabolic health, leave a comment below. We read every single one. Until next time, take care of yourselves, take care of each other. Good night. And I mean that in the most medically serious way possible.